Hello, everybody. I'm a male space, and I'm talking to post Millennial Man today. And today
Yeah.
we're going to be discussing solutions for young men. And I am concerned about young men in this day and age, and I'm sure you are also post
Yeah.
man. And we're going to just be discussing men's issues and helping men along in these very chaotic times. I think that's a good way to character describe these times. What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree. I've got three sons and two daughters. And my kids are younger, but as they grow, I think the landscape is getting worse, not better. So it's on my mind and on my heart. For both of them, my young guys and my young girls. What's happening here, but especially young guys. Yeah, it seems like the deck is stacked against them, very much so in the modern world. So, that's on my mind a lot.
Yes, it is on my mind also a lot because I also have I have one son and one daughter. They're young, so I am also concerned about both of them. But here we
Yeah.
are in so-called male space is what my channel is titled. So we're going to discuss what young men are going through. The first item that you and I address also, and I think, do you think, I want to ask before I go this, do you think that a lot of this focus on marriage, attraction, dating, do you think that this is a symptom? See, I consider, if you look online, I've been saying this in all my videos so far, is that the I think the first thing that people go to is this dating crisis, the male loneliness crisis, the dating debacle, having hard times finding women. See, but I look at this as a symptom of a broken and atomized society generally. I do not think that
Mhm.
these many men are inadequate as suitors or potential husbands. I do not believe there's possibly this many so-called defective men out there. Do you think that this is a broader problem and not just the problem of just each individual man not, let's say, measuring up? If you,
Mhm. Yeah, I mean that's a good question. I think the average man is about what he's always been, pretty average. He goes,
yes,
to an average job and does fairly average things. But I think in the modern world, what's really changed is the education level and the earning level of the average woman. Now that has come up, fairly drastically to the point where I look around. I was just telling my wife this when I look around. I work for a Fortune 500 company, a very large company. And I was telling her, I look in my office space, like I don't know a single woman that's younger. If she's under 35, they're single. I couldn't name a single woman that's in my broad office space that I know that is married. And I just thought, boy, that's really interesting. Because these are, fairly intelligent people. They're like they've got it together, and none of them are married. So that's that's just very odd to me. Now, the flip side of that is the guys. I think a lot of them are or probably more so. They're married. The ones in my space, but I don't know if that's broadly speaking, if that's the case, though, that they're, married, younger men are married and that kind of thing. So yeah, I think it is a crisis that's starting to happen that you hear a lot about online. And then I look around and I'm like, yeah, I think it is actually starting to happen. I'm in the Midwest, it doesn't get much more conservative than being in the Midwest of the USA out in the cornfields here. So yeah, it does seem like there is a change that's taking place.
right, because even as a New Yorker, I'm from a more urban environment. I was born and raised in Queens, New York. I lived there for till my
Mm,
mid 30s, and although the neighborhood that I lived in was a little more suburban, I didn't limit myself just to my one neighborhood. I worked in very urban areas. I worked in Manhattan. I spent much of my
mm,
recreational time in Astoria, the Bronx,
okay.
Brooklyn, all over the place, either worked in those areas. So at first I thought that maybe this was simply a city thing, because sometimes even me, we're not guilty, but we're prone to thinking that, oh, the Midwest, church going people, all the
Yeah.
women there are wholesome and great, and they're married in their early 20s, and everybody's family oriented. But then I had this hunch. I said, I think this is already just all over the United States at this point. Is that seems to be what you're saying?
Yeah, that seems to be what I'm observing. Now, I do observe, I have some younger friends, they're in their early 20s that now they aren't religious at all. But they're, they're good people, not like they're crazed wackos or whatever, but they're not religious. But they have what appears to be on Facebook. If I would see them and not know any of their status, it looks like they have a wife and young children. But I know two of them that stick out in my mind. One owns his own like small landscaping business, and the other one, he's a iron worker, in a union iron worker. But they have like normal. You would think they would be like married and have a child, but no, they don't. They don't marry these women. They just live together and have a family together. So they're living like they're married with children, and I think both of them, their wives don't work. They or not their wives, their girlfriends don't work. They just stay at home with their kids, but they don't marry. And I think that's interesting, because even like when I was 20, I don't think there was near as much of that going on with like you have basically a stay-at-home mom, you're just not married to her. And it just seems
Oh,
very bizarre to me.
I see. I mean, but that's bizarre. But do you think that is because of what you and I know? I mean, we've both spoken to who I think probably at this time, I think so, is the foremost authority on the divorce regime, Dr. Steve
Mm,
Baskerville. And
yeah.
he has given us much information on divorce court and family policies. Uh,
Hmm.
do you think that perhaps that's why people, even if they are cohabitating, they're not getting married?
Well, yeah, I think that might be part of it. These two guys, though, I don't know them in particular if they really think that deeply about it. Like I doubt they've really studied this. I wonder with them if it's more a thing of like their girlfriends just don't require it. I kind of wonder if their girlfriends required marriage to engage in physical intimacy, then they probably would measure up to that, I would guess. But
I see.
um, they don't. So, so and just
Okay.
it's strange. It's kind of odd to me. Just like wow, they're living as if they're married with children, and they. I mean, it's almost like they have a tradcon wife. Just they're
Yes.
not married. They're like there's no ring. Uh, anyway, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I do believe that could work for some people. I mean, there are some people who could probably cohabitate indefinitely until the end. Perhaps it could work out like a marriage until death do them
Yeah.
part. But that's what's going to tie into our first topic that we mentioned is that because now that the women are earning as much as men in some even areas, metropolitan areas, they're on average earning more than men.
Mm.
That you use the term, and I consider it a kind of a funny term. You said that husbands perhaps are looked at as a luxury good.
Yeah. Yeah. Now Ryan Stone from the I don't know if they called it the married red pill space or something like that. That was a term he used that I thought was really interesting because he's kind of the long-term relationship red pill guy. His content online is really thought-provoking and whatever. It's just his presentation it needs a little. He's kind of hard to listen to for me personally, just because he's so sarcastic in everything he says that if you can kind of weed through that, his content is pretty good. It's just the way he presents is like for me, it's harder to listen to, but anyway, he talked about that how men, so women, men used to provide protection, provision, and procreation. I guess would be kind of the three P's that it talked about quite a bit. And today men don't need to give protection. We have police and military for that. Men don't need to give provision because we compete for the exact same jobs that the women are looking to get, and we give them preferential treatment in college, to enter into college, and we give them preferential treatment. Probably even the bigger one is we give them preferential treatment in entering the job space. So I know, like my company, it's a large company. We don't even try to hide the fact that we hire women over men. It's in our public statements to stockholders. Like we track this in our statements of how many more women we have than men, right? So we publish how many minorities we have and how many women we have. So like once they publish that to stockholders, they have to make progress on it. Like they can't come out the next year and be like, hey, yeah, we're actually 2% behind. Sorry. Well, no, like they will make progress on that when they start to publish it to stockholders. So, we've all that to say we've set up a system where, women, they don't need men for provision. So then what are they looking to men for? And I think that's why I kind of like the term men are kind of a luxury good. Like you don't need a man. It's not like a staple good like the mac and cheese. No, you want a man that's like filet mignon, right? You can get mac and cheese anywhere. Um, so I would say to a young man, then you need to learn. You need to learn how to be a luxury good. Like it's not going to be good enough just to slog it through and go to your blue collar job and expect to have a wonderful woman there for you at your beck and call. Not that you necessarily want that anyway. I don't know, but I'm just saying like that's not realistic. That was realistic for my grandpa's generation, but men nowadays, we got to try twice as hard as our grandpas to get women half as good.
Okay, you put it like that, I understand. I mean, but that kind of like I've discussed this also before with some people is that kind of puts men in sort of a position in which they might not be able to do that because we still need these blue collar jobs done. So, I mean,
Yeah,
perhaps it's a
yeah, yeah.
challenge. Perhaps it's a challenging question. I mean, I we need these jobs done. So, if
Mm,
a man is doing this and we need this done, then perhaps we have the answers to this. Perhaps we don't. Perhaps we're just getting these conversations going. Then, what
mm.
could a blue collar man do to make himself more attractive? I mean, that's
Yeah.
yes,
Well, yeah. So no, that's a good point. I'm not saying that you shouldn't pursue the blue collar job and whatnot, but I'm just saying that won't be valued and respected
right,
by an average woman. Whereas it used to be, like, it used to be,
yes,
boy, I mean, this guy, he's a good earner, brings home a steady paycheck, blah, blah, blah. I really believe women could care less about that in 2025.
right,
So yeah, what is that to be attractive? I mean, you gotta learn what triggers attraction in women. Like, are you good at conversation? I mean, if you're not, then get good at conversation. Can you
yes.
like that'd be a major thing. Um, so yeah, I mean, looking good. Do you look good? Would somebody? I mean, I think it's kind of a trope, but it's like, as I mean, for me, I'm 41. And, if I look like the average 41-year-old, just like overweight and not in shape, um, if I was looking for a woman or even for my wife, like, is she attracted to that? It's like, well, she's my woman. She must be attractive. But it's like, no, that's not how the world works. Like, there are certain things that make you attractive and certain things that make you unattractive. And it doesn't matter what the commitment level is there. And the same goes for men to women. I mean, we all know that. Like, if you're alive. I was even talking to a friend of mine from church about that, about like, well, yeah, I was like, well, there are certain things that a woman can do to make herself attractive, right? And he's like, well, no, your wife is attractive because she's your wife and she's committed to you. And I was like, no, no, that's just not true. Like,
Right.
you can commit to me as much as you want. That doesn't mean I'm attracted to you. Like, that's anyway.
Yeah.
So I think it's understanding. What I'm trying to say is just basic understanding of attraction and what that is. And for men, it's not all. You don't have to be, the best looking guy. Because women fall in love with what they hear, right?
Yes.
Men fall in love with what they see. Women fall in love with what they hear. So, can you learn the tools of, I mean, in some ways, what women want to hear, right? Like,
Yes.
there's
I,
some things I can say to my wife that will make her feel good, and there's some things that I know will trigger her to get mad. So,
yeah.
like, what are those things?
Right. Well, I mean, that's something we wanted to get here our list here as well. And but just to backtrack for a moment, and also I am going to be spontaneous here. I realize I missed something. If we could just backtrack and then go forward, I apologize about this.
Yeah.
I totally glossed over allowing you to introduce yourself, and as I was talking
Oh,
to you, I realized that, and I felt kind of silly for that. So can we just quickly rewind and give yourself an introduction because uh, Yeah, that was a goof on my part. But how did
Yeah, no, no problem. Yeah. So my first name is Matt, and I am the Post Mill Man online with my YouTube channel, on Twitter and on Instagram. I'm not really on there very much because I'm usually just on YouTube. My following is fairly small, but I put out content. Usually having to do with scripture and what scripture says about male female relationships. My channel is called the Post Millennial Man channel because I believe in the post millennial view of Christ's return. So I don't want to get too far into that, but that's kind of what the name goes into. Anybody's interested in that, you can look up what that is. It's a very old view. The Puritans had that view. Anyway, so
okay,
so yeah, that's where the name comes from.
okay,
It doesn't have to do with the post millennial newspaper. I guess there's a news outlet called the Post Millennial. Anyway, yeah,
okay, good. Thank you for that. I just I
yeah,
felt bad about that. But anyway, we're gonna get back into this. But you see, what I was saying also though is that there's all kinds of roadblocks now. You mentioned also and also I'm trying to educate myself on this because at first I thought I usually I tend to take a very fair view of things. At first, I thought, well, are young men these days, actually lazy? Are they actually being discriminated against? Is this a trope that they're being discriminated against? And I've asked people to educate me on that, and perhaps I should look into that by reading more. I mean, I am a big reader, and I should educate myself on this male issue of the anti-male discrimination, like you've just described here at
mm,
the workplace, having this quota which is not merit based, simply just based on sex. So
mm,
male or female. So that is actually to me that is a discrimination because it's not going on merit; it's going by what the sex of the person is. So that would
yeah,
be a form of discrimination. So, but as we said before, to backtrack one moment, and we're going to get back into what men can do to make themselves attractive, is that okay? If the husband is considered a luxury good, I could see why someone would think that because of the increased status of women. But then, as we got back to this, and as Dr. Daniel Emnaeus through his work, and also Dr. Stephen Baskerville has educated me through his work as well, is that I didn't look at marriage at first according to what they were saying. The primary reason for marriage which is to establish fatherhood. I thought it
mm,
was for procreation. I thought it was for child raising. Now it involves that, but as
mm,
Dr. Baskerville said in the interview with me, is that women prove every day that you can procreate outside of marriage. Obviously, that's very simple to do. It's very simple to do that deed outside of marriage. And
yeah,
single mothers prove every day that they can raise a kid by themselves. Now,
mm,
how the turnout of a single mother household, we probably both of us know the effects of that and what goes on in the effects of single parent households, even single father households versus single mother households. We have plenty of research on that. The
yeah,
consequences of both setups. Now, but what are we going to do though? Meaning that right now we have it that one of the reasons why men are not getting divorced for a valid reason is because the ownership of the children is not in the man's hands, technically speaking. It is in the state's hands. When
yeah,
marriage is supposed to be established, is supposed to establish fatherhood. Now,
mm,
if we're going to be considered, I mean, you and I are married again. I'm just saying we, meaning men, that has to be, even though it's looked upon at that, and it's kind of like a funny term actually, and it's kind of what it's being looked at. Aren't men going to have to steer this back to what it really is? I mean, I don't know if
mm,
it's going to take political, it's going to take law changes, obviously, as Dr. Baskerville said, but
yeah,
we can't have a civilization indefinitely in which we have families that appear to be families, but are like pseudo families, meaning that we're going to have families where, okay, the children are living with us, but uh, technically speaking, not your wife, not my wife. I'm saying if a woman decides
mm,
to take the ownership of the kids because she has the government on her side, this has led to all kinds of disastrous consequences, as discussed in
oh
the book
yeah,
Taken into Custody by Dr. Baskerville that I have right here.
oh
So,
okay.
yeah, so don't you think we're going to have to somehow in the future steer this in the direction that we are fathers, not luxury goods, that we have a say in this children's life? We are not luxuries because they
Yeah,
are.
I do. Yeah, I do think so. And I'm not sure about when that point will come. I know, some people think, oh, the societal collapse is right around the corner. And once we have a societal collapse, then all this will fix itself and yada, yada, yada. And I said, I mean, I don't think the societal collapse is right around the corner.
Right.
But I could be wrong about that. So I just think, if you're a young man and you're waiting for the societal collapse to happen so
Yes.
that you can shine once again, then I think you're living in fantasy land. You kind of just got to deal with the times that you're in,
Yes. Yes.
and the time, like I hear all these black pill doomers on here, just talking about how bad the times are and blah blah blah. I'm just like, listen, like my grandpa when he was what 19 had to sign up and go to World War II and get shot at by the Japanese, and then my other grandpa, he was at D-Day, right?
Yeah.
So times were rough then. Now, did they have more respect from women in general and their wives? Well, yeah, they did.
Yes.
But there was other things that were going on that were really bad that could have ended very badly for them. So I think every male generation has their problems. Our generation times are really good as far as economically, and well, maybe some people make an argument they're not, but whatever. But as far as that goes, they're fairly good. We don't have wars that we're getting our arms shot off or something. But we have this family issue, so it's tough for men. You got to stand up. You got to have courage. Is it courageous to take on a family these days? Yeah, I think it is. But men do
Yes.
courageous things. Like,
Yeah.
do you want your name? I've done a couple videos. It's like, well, do you want your name to die out? I don't want my name to die out because, well, it's risky to take on a woman. Yeah, it is risky. Like with all the laws and all this crazy
Yes.
stuff.
It
Like,
is. Yeah.
yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But I want my family name to live on. Um, that's worth it to me. So anyway.
Yeah, no, everything you say is great. And I share those views with you. I mean, I'm someone who's aware, I'm well aware of what's going on. I've educated myself greatly on this topic from the authors I've read, and I put these names out there because I want other men to educate themselves on the real nitty gritty of what's going on here. Roger Devlin, who wrote Sexual Utopia and Power, Dr. Helen Smith, Dr. Daniel Amneas, Dr. Stephen
Mm,
Baskerville. I mean, if someone wants to really know the climate of these days, I should educate themselves from sources that
yeah.
I cannot convey just by my words in videos with people. I mean, these are, I have a whole stack of books here for men to educate themselves from, and I really want men to start reading some of this material to know what they're getting into. And
Mm,
but with that said, I mean, I mean, marriage, besides establishing fatherhood, it also connects you to society. It also
mm,
offers all kinds of other benefits. I mean, you're not just an individual now. You have children, you have in-laws, you have friends and other bonds from a community. You can
yeah.
also be a family part of a religious institution, such as a church or whatever
Mm.
other religion you're involved in. So, I mean, what I know now is that,
And just real quick, like churches and probably synagogues and mosques, or I don't know much about them, but I know churches for sure, they are built on families. Like
yes,
if you are not, husband, wife, children, blah, 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 like yes, you're welcome into the church, but you're like the main building blocks of a church are the families. Like that's what it takes to
yes,
have, a normal church really.
exactly. So, I mean, I'll say this is that I neither right now encourage or discourage marriage. I mean, under these circumstances, I can't just say, even as a married man, yes, do this, right? But I
Mm,
also will not say, don't do this because all of the benefits that marriage gives someone, as I said before, just now, what
yeah.
it does for your life, though, and all the great things that come from marriage. And now, this is kind of funny. We'll just throw this in there. Is that I discussed this with Dr. Baskerville also? Is that when you put that quote from Bernard Shaw, and even Dr. Daniel Amneas quotes this from Bernard Shaw. Would you
Mm.
like to read it, or I should read it? Have the tendency?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because so it's a quote about like do women need men today? Do they even want men really deep down? And so it was a quote by George Bernard Shaw saying he's talking about two classes of women. He says in this two classes of women are concerned those who though they have no desire for the presence or care of children, nevertheless feel that motherhood is an experience necessary to their complete psychological development and understanding of themselves and others. So talking about there's one kind of woman who they don't really want children, but they feel like that's part of being a woman, so they should experience that. Sounds like a very selfish woman. Like anyway, so
Go ahead. Yeah.
that's the second kind of woman, and those who, though unable to find or unwilling to entertain a husband would like to occupy themselves with the rearing of children. So he says, so the second kind is like they don't really want to be married, they don't want to be wives,
Right.
but they really want to have a child, like they want to be a mother. And he says, in my own experience of discussing this question leads me to believe that the one point on which all women are in furious secret rebellion against the existing law is the saddling of the right to a child with the obligation to become the servant of a man. So it's like they want to have a child, but they don't want to become the servant of a man in order
Yes.
to do it. That, and so I thought that was an interesting quote. I've even told my pastor. I sat down at lunch with him a few weeks ago, and I was telling him, I said, I don't. I think the average woman is very interested in being a mother, but I don't think the average woman today in 2025 is very interested in being a wife because a wife is a job description. And I don't even think half of our women today in 2025 could even name, a quarter of the qualifications to be a wife. Like that is a job description, and it
Right.
has to do just with your obligations to your husband.
Right.
Nothing to do with the kids, nothing to do with that kind of stuff, right? So, um, yeah, I think we're in a tough spot as far as that goes.
Yes, I think it is a very tough spot because even the media, much of the media is infused with messages that being a wife and a mother is something that is low. That's what I've seen, actually, not the
Mm,
path to go, or not the foremost priority. Because even if you see the average age of, let's say, women birthing children keeps going up, and
mm,
marriage age keeps going up as well, and
mm.
they're talking about a fertility crisis. This is not the way to correct it. This is not the way that it's going to be corrected.
Do you think it's a wife and mothers look down upon if that's the only thing you are? Because it seems like the thing that's glorified some is I'm this working boss babe and I have children. Like I don't think that's really looked down upon at
Right.
all. It's just the I'm a trad con stay at home wife making sourdough bread for my husband or whatever. Like that's
Yeah,
like,
I see.
oh, that's
I see.
horrible or
Yeah,
whatever.
I mean, I think that if someone puts it as the foremost priority, I mean, that's the sense that I'm getting. I mean, perhaps, I mean, I'm not exposed to everything. I cannot consume all kinds of media out there. I'm just saying that that's the gist that I get. If a
Yeah.
woman puts that as the foremost concern or priority over the career, I don't mean a woman who is the sourdough baking, that whole sourdough thing, as if that's all we're going to be.
That's so
There's
ridiculous.
plenty of other meals to eat besides toasted sourdough bread with butter or something. I don't know why I keep on hearing about sourdough. There are many other things to make
It,
for you.
it's just a grift.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Is my on it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway.
I think that's looked down upon, and I think that I used to listen to Susan Vanker, who we're going to discuss also a little bit here. Is that I remember her saying things about that as well because I used to listen to her, and I think that she has a good grasp of what the popular
Mm.
media, or I think she's a good fact finder also on like what's going on in this realm of
Yeah, I really like her.
yes,
Yeah, I
yeah,
like her content.
right, because one thing that she had good, and I think that perhaps if a man doesn't want, let's say, not a full trad wife, but let's say a wife who's prioritizes being a mother and a wife over career. I don't mean not working. I don't mean not working. I mean that
Yeah.
this is very important, maybe even more important than career, but still has a career or a job, as we call it. So,
Mm.
um, I think that it's still very important that a woman works because not a tradcon wife, because most men are not rich. In many
Yeah.
areas of the country, if you're not rich, you cannot have the tradcon wife staying home all day making
Mm.
sourdough bread. So,
Yeah.
I mean, but
Or you're gonna live, a very meager existence, and then most women are not interested in living that kind of meager existence. And
right,
I think that's why our birth rate's so low, is because, people are not willing to live that meager existence to live that traditional
yeah,
family type of
right.
way, you know?
Right. I mean, yeah, this could go in all kinds of different directions. And I want to get back on track for a moment, but I believe it's something that you brought up just now that is important because you have to also take into account, well, meager existence or whether it's lavish, meager, whatever, but I mean, there still is expenses in terms of supplying the children with a full life. I don't mean, let's say, a privileged, luxurious life, but there are still activities. There's still, my children are involved in soccer, dance, swimming lessons. I mean, I don't want to have my children in my backyard only. I want my children to bond with other children and be involved in activities or maybe even foster their talents. Like even my son, he loves
Mm,
swimming. He loves dancing. So we have him in dance class. We have him in swimming. My
okay.
daughter, he also goes to the soccer little league, even though he's not really into the soccer, but still it provides some
Yeah.
athleticism and exercise and bonding with other kids. My daughter loves dance actually. So I mean, these things do take they're expenses these days. And even if you want to send your kid to a religious school, such as, let's say, Catholic school, the Catholic schools
Yeah.
used to be very cheap in this country, and now they're the same cost as a private school. That used to be,
Really?
yes, some of them are very
Wow.
expensive. Where Catholic,
Okay, yeah, because I thought usually the diocese helps kick in money to fund the
yes,
schools and
but
whatnot.
from what I've heard, some of them are moderately expensive or very expensive, depending on which
Mm,
one. But
okay.
it's not nearly as cheap as what it used to be. So unless someone has family help, I mean, it's going to be hard to do that on one income these days, especially in metropolitan areas. So
Yeah.
I think that these things are to be taken into consideration when men get paired up with their to-be wives or their wives, um,
Yeah.
and also the importance probably of consideration. Like I understand the whole gold pill thing we're going to get into, or what the woman brings to the table, economically
Yeah.
speaking, but I think that also for the first 3 years of children's lives, you do want perhaps the woman to uh, stay more at home. I don't mean not work at all. I mean, be there to raise the kids at least in the first few years of the children's lives. So these things have to be,
Yeah.
I think, plotted out in advance, as Dr. Vanker has been saying, meaning that before you get married, if you're going to get married, I'm not encouraging or discouraging, considering what I know and what I put
Mm.
forth in my videos, that these things should be considered for young men, I believe, which is
Yeah, yeah, for sure. No, I agree. And when we say get married, that's where I've shifted my thinking quite a bit on. Are we talking legal marriage or are we talking covenant marriage? Because I 100% believe that we should covenantally marry, meaning vow before God and man
yeah,
that we will stay together and be committed to one another. And our church and our family is going to hold us accountable to these vows that we've taken, blah, blah, blah. I don't know how much I'm in an agreement that we should sign the marriage license though. That's a completely different ball of wax when we do that. That has nothing to do with God, nothing to do there is nothing in holy scripture that talks about signing a marriage license. So that's where I probably differ with a lot of people on like, well, I I don't know if I'd sign that marriage license or not. I certainly did. But I actually, it's funny now that I look back. I've been married 14 years, and I had no idea what I was signing. Then I didn't have a clue. Like I thought the only thing that mattered, being a religious man, was we go and we vow before God, and that's all that matters. And then there's like this other thing, like, oh yeah, the pastor. I didn't even know we had to sign this thing after the wedding service. Was how little I knew. Like it was like, oh
yes,
yeah, we go back with the pastor's like, yeah, you got to sign this. And like, oh okay, I didn't even know that. Like that's how little I knew about it. You know,
right.
it's crazy.
But now we have the information on our hands now, also, which is why I keep on
Yeah.
recommending these books that are jam packed with information about family court and the divorce regime. So
Mm,
that's part of the solution, also, meaning that understand what is going on here. But I'm in full agreement with you, meaning that if it's not going to be government marriage, there has to be some type of community or society or governmental, not the government, some type of governing body, whether it's the church or society or the community, that says that this man is the father of these children. It has to be a community thing where it's an understanding that this child belongs to him and we're backing up him as a father and husband. I
yeah.
believe that the support of fathers and husbands is down the drain now.
Yeah.
The,
Yeah. It is.
like Dr. Baskerville and Dr. Amnea said, that the society has to support the father. I don't see that these days. It's not there. It's certainly
Yeah.
not there according to the government. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. For sure.
yes,
Yeah, and I understand what Dr. Baskerville was saying about like, you know, the only way they used to determine paternity was who was married to the mother.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
But I know, listen to like This Is Shaw. I really like his work.
Yes.
That, the way we do it now is very scientific. We do a paternity test. So that's probably better. Because then we,
I
then
mean,
we
yeah,
really
but
know.
I mean,
Yeah.
let me just ask you, do you think that's better because I mean that's just the sperm donor, so to speak. It's not.
Mm,
It might not even be the man that is raising this kid or has a affectionate love for this kid. I mean, you could
mm,
still. Uh, uh, there could be a man who this is a very major transgression, who has a adulterous wife,
yeah.
who he, in the cases that we all know of now, in which the father believes that this son or daughter is his. Years go
Mm,
by, and he finds out belatedly that the kids that he loved and cared for are someone else's, you know, offspring, biologically speaking, as we know. But he
yeah.
is the father raising them. He is the father. He's not the sperm donor. So
Yeah.
I see. That's where I now that I understand like that, I could see why it would be who's there in the household with the kid already, and the right.
Mm,
Perhaps we could have that man having the, as I understand it, what it's called right of first refusal, meaning that the man could decide, okay, these are my children. Once the man says that these are not my biological offspring, but that
yeah.
man, the man who gave birth, who sired these children, is that's these are not his kids anymore. He's a sperm donor. He has zero custody. I have full custody. I'm the father. And now
Yeah.
I know people would say, well, that's you're just a cook. I understand when they say, oh, you're just a cuckold, but this man didn't know this, and he already has a bond with kids that love him.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure he loves them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
No, and I agree. I don't know if I'd agree though that if the man who is their biological father, if he would want to have some type of visitation or whatever, I think he should have some kind. Maybe it's only 2% right to or whatever, but like if he's the actual father, I think there's something important there about genetics and ties
right,
genetically. Um, I think he should have some kind of visitation right, obviously. But not like if he just abandoned the kids and this kid's raised them or this other man's raised them as his own for 20 years, then yeah, he shouldn't have much right to
right.
that.
I see. I mean, for me, I would be more like right of first refusal, meaning that if the man did not want to raise these kids further, then it's either 100% custody with that guy or 100% custody with that guy. That's the way I would see
Hmm.
it. But anyway, that's besides the
Okay.
point. Yeah,
Yeah.
not besides the point. We're going to move on from that because we touched upon marriage quite a bit here, and that's one of
Yeah.
the areas that men should be wary of these days of what they want to do with that.
Mm. Yeah,
Because
I think I'm starting to get more on board with like Michael Sands, a buddy of mine. He talks about having a prenup if you're going to get legally married. The prenup can be a very good thing to be adults and discuss like what are the terms of this marriage that we're both
yeah,
agreeing to,
right,
other than for richer or for poor, till death do us part, blah blah
yeah,
blah, which we know. I mean, that doesn't work out so well, It's anyway. So what are the actual, not the pie in the sky terms, but what are the actual terms of this
right,
marriage here?
yes,
Like I'm starting to get more convinced that like yes, that's probably a very good thing to put that in writing of what are the realistic terms of this marriage? Because pie in the sky, we can do that all day, but we know how that turns out. So
yeah,
anyway, yeah,
yeah. Well, getting back to what can make men more attractive, I mean, I think that also, as you said, I don't think it's possible for all men to be in this top 20%, top 10%. Under any conditions, that's not going to be the case.
yeah,
There are things that I believe that men should be conscientious of now. First of all, physical fitness. I mean, I'm uh, I'm a big, huge gym rat. I mean, these are my bodybuilding photos behind me. I competed in bodybuilding once. I got a natural pro card. So I'm a big, huge gym buff. So I believe that men should keep in physical shape. It doesn't have to be bodybuilding per se. It could be any type of sports they're involved in, martial arts, etc. I do regret not being more involved in a martial art my whole life. Actually, I actually am considering doing some type of class for it in the future. But I mean, being industrious, having friends, having a so-called life, which
yeah. No, I was just gonna say that just being an interesting person, just having stuff going on.
yes,
Um, and I would say too, if you're looking for a woman, like I do a lot of traditionally masculine hobbies. Like I like dirt bike racing. I like boxing. Stuff like that. But it's good to have like one hobby that like women kind of do too. So maybe that's like salsa dancing or
Yes.
whatever. Just to, something, maybe it's physical that like if you're salsa dancing, man, you start sweating doing that. Like that, that's a pretty good workout.
Yeah.
But whatever that, just something that like maybe you can meet women at or bring a woman to, or, share something like that. I think that's a good thing to have if you're young, single, and, you're looking for things like that. And the same thing for women. Like, man, you get women are like, oh, I can't find any men. Blah blah blah. It's like, well, men have things that they do. You ever been to a motorcycle race? Like,
Yeah. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
like, oh, there's a lot of stuff that is basically 95% men. And if you showed up as a decent looking woman who took a shower and did her hair and makeup, you'd probably stand out like a sore thumb.
Yes. I totally agree with that. But I think that I see I'm an older man now. Like I'm 46 years old. I'm not young now. So when I think of things, I'm thinking of things from a biased point of view. I'm thinking of my younger days, like the even going back to the mid 90s. I mean, thinking of that, I feel old right now. Also, I'm kind of old actually, but at
Yeah.
46. But I mean, to me, there's this emphasis on what I see. So I only gather information from online. I don't want to spend all day online, but I do not know specifically what young men are going through because my information is biased from what I see men talking about online. I don't know what
Oh,
men who are not online frequently and not expressing their feelings online, I don't know what they're thinking. So, I
mhm.
mean, I think that from what I see online, a lot of men, and I know some young men would probably be annoyed at me for saying you're being negative, you're feeling sorry for yourself. I mean, no one really wants to. I understand why a young man would not want an older man telling him that, because maybe he did try things to make more friends. Maybe he did try things to attract a woman and it didn't work. He improved himself and it's very hard. But
Yeah.
I think that these things have to be cultivated very early. Like I know
Mm.
there's a lot in the so-called self-improvement arena of the male spaces online, the red pill, other areas of the male self-improvement spaces. But I think that
Yeah.
they missed the mark also. And this is maybe where I'm a little bit of a black pillar. I had a little bit of the black pill streak is that I'm not
Mm.
saying life is over for you if you're a late bloomer. But I think in this day and age, if you don't pay attention to certain things this day and age, coming out of the gate, friends, your career track, industriousness, physical activity, I think that it
Yeah.
is very difficult to get back on track with that. Because once you do not establish a social clique young, when you're, let's say, in your
Mm.
teens, 20s, early 20s, in your career, whatever it is
Yeah.
all the more harder to establish these social connections as time goes on. And the less, see,
Mm.
to me, the social adjustment to me, I'm not a red pill. I'm not a red pill guru. I understand where the red pillars come from. There's much truth in the so-called red pill. I'm not against that kind of thought. Some of it is unsavory, though. That I think, as I was telling you before, some of it has taken this kind of hedonistic strain that I'm not on board with. But there is truth to
Mm.
it. But besides that, I believe that social adjustment and social connection matter far more than looks and even
Mm.
in some
Yeah.
cases money. Because if you're socially disconnected, that is a very, very bad position to be in to meet women. That's my belief.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, yeah, the reverse. So you do feel bad for the women though, that like, so beauty and loyalty are what women are kind of measured on. So I think men are at an advantage, at least as far as that goes, is that men are not necessarily just measured on being physically attractive. There's
Yes.
a lot of other ways to make yourself attractive to females. Boy, females, they're kind of they're kind of screwed on that one though. If you're not very attractive, boy, yeah.
Oh, well, I guess, I mean, I do consider women the they are the stronger sex sexually speaking. I mean, you could be an ordinary looking woman and still have no shortage of dates. I mean,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, you could certainly, if you weren't that, great looking, naturally, you could be thin, you could be fit. You could be nice. You
Yes.
could be agreeable. You could
Yes.
have a personality. Those things today go a long way compared to, I mean, if 70% of women are overweight, um, like you could probably do pretty well out
Yeah,
there.
yeah. Yes. So I guess if anybody comes across, I have a very small channel right now, but I guess if some young men come across my channel, I don't want to say to them, I would never say to them like, look, it's too late. It's too late. But I'm saying that, you kind of,
Mhm.
if any man in their teens or 20s comes across my channel, I am urging them to say like, look, I do not go for this whole thing that a lot of these so-called gurus go for, that, men peak into 35 to 50 years old. Now, perhaps they are financially stronger in those years and they might be attractive to some women that are younger, but I something uh, I'm going to say it again. I believe these things have to be cultivated very early, because
Yeah.
I'm going to say it again, and I will drop it because I want to be a broken record. You got to get these friendships and connections going early, because the more time that goes on, the less people are available generally. The less women are
Mhm.
available. The less, well, as you're saying, a lot of women are not married. I guess they're available, but
Yeah, those limos are extending, I think.
yes,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
to get let's say inside of a social circle, it's hard to do that later in life. So my premise is to be socially connected and focus on career. Pretty much I believe that status and social adjustments ranks way higher than looks in my.
Yeah.
Yes. So
Yeah.
I guess that's covers the attraction part that we're talking about here. And now, I want to go into this gold pill line of thought. And I'm not
Mhm.
saying I'm necessarily a gold pillar per se, but I know that
Yeah.
you've had discussions with Shah, and
Yeah.
when
No,
you,
I really like that line of thought with um, bride price. So bride price we see in scripture,
yes,
and their dowry, which we don't really see dowry in scripture. It's usually only bride price we see in scripture, but I think dowry kind of came along a little later. Um, and I know Shaw is going into like, yeah, this we got to bring this back. I just don't practically see how that's going to come back. You know,
I, I think that the idea of a dowry is uh, sound. I mean, it is good. I think that it brings more of the family involvement and the
yeah.
economic and practical aspects of marriage back into the fore, because as we've been discussing in these spaces, that we're just simply going off a romantic model. And
Mm,
the romantic model, to me, the way I interpret it, if I could be wrong, as I've been reading from Peter Wright, is that it's or that guy other guy De Augusto, that
mm,
he is also involved in the gold pill line of thinking, is that it also brings back the practicality of community and family, meaning that family involvement, meaning the dowry is going to come from a family. And right now I believe that we're going off this romantic model, and as Paul Elam and Shaw have been saying, that once those romantic feelings go away and no practical
mm,
consideration is there to back this up long term,
yeah.
then everything fades away.
Well,
So
yeah, and just the whole marriage is the marriage ceremony. We have this traditional marriage ceremony. This is nothing but a pantomime. Like the
yes.
father gives away his daughter to this man. The average age of marriage now is like 30. So he's giving away this daughter that's under his household, which she's probably been living alone for 10 years,
Right. Yes.
and gives her away to this man like she was his property, and now he's giving his property to this man, this son-in-law that he's gaining. But it's like this complete pantomime that, I mean, I guess it's kind of nostalgic. It just means nothing today, like
Right.
what?
Right. Because even when I was listening to a podcast with Roger Devlin, he brought up that issue of significance. Also, he said there's literally no legal significance to this marriage at all. Meaning that it's simply a wedding. Meaning that
Yeah.
they go through the motions, but it's not the father actually literally handing off his door to the groom. That's not what it is anymore. It's just
Yeah.
for show. And
Yeah.
um, uh, why do you think, you brought up something also, why do you think that people get, and this might be an off topic, not having to do with solutions per se, why do you think that, but it has to do with restoring marriage, I believe, is that why do you think that people get so squeamish when people talk of children and daughters, wives referred to as property? Why do you think they get so squeamish about this? I mean, that even if someone were to say, well, I own my children, I own my minor children, why do they get so squeamish at the if you have any input. I mean, maybe some people do have input, some people
Mm.
don't. I notice there's squeamishness on that kind of
Well,
topic.
yeah, especially children. You'd think like, well, if I don't own my children, well, who does then?
Yes,
Like,
right,
like the state owns my children. Then
right,
is that what we're saying? Like
yeah,
nobody likes that idea, but
right,
so it's
exactly.
like, well, okay, well, who owns them then? If I don't and the
Yes,
state doesn't,
exactly. Yes,
then
yeah,
they're just autonomous beings. Like,
right.
no,
I actually asked that to a woman once. I said, "Well, if I don't own them, who does? Who makes their medical? Who makes their educational, and medical decisions? They don't. I'm
mm,
responsible for that. So,
yeah,
what are you talking about? I don't own them." And also, I believe that also because of this problem, that there is not a more of a. I know people get very annoyed at this. If there's not a patriarchal flavor to marriage, then who belongs to who? I mean,
yeah,
there's like as I was discussing with another man I interviewed, Anthony Nowicki, is that the problem I see with this whole mess that young men are in is that I believe, as people in the gospel space have been saying, is that dating generally. I know that young men have to date now because how else are you going to do this? We don't have courtship. We don't have courtship in which a suitor is trying to court the daughter, get approval from the father, which
yeah,
to me is the ideal way and the way it should be. I believe we are
mm,
completely in what Devlin and Baskerville call sexual anarchy, where literally there are no rules. No one belongs to anyone. See, to me, the boyfriend and girlfriend thing, even though I know that men have to go through that process, boyfriend and girlfriend before marriage now, how do you get around this in this day and age? I don't know. To me,
yeah,
these are inconsequential terms. They might as well they might as well mean absolutely nothing in the context
mm,
of serious life. Because
yeah.
if all women, well, even the ones that are not married, all not all, many have boyfriends. Are they going to marry these boyfriends? They don't seem to be marrying these boyfriends. So
Yeah.
what kind of consequence to this relationship is there? I mean, if a woman has boyfriend after boyfriend since teenage years, what are these? What where does this go? Is this productive? I don't
Well,
know.
yeah, even like biblically speaking in the Old Testament, uh, you're talking about women, boyfriend, girlfriend, these are inconsequential, but like those relationships in the Old Testament,
Yeah.
if you were having sex, you were married.
You see,
Like that,
yes,
so it's like these people that are boyfriend, girlfriend, and then like 3 months, oh, okay, we got a new one, blah, blah. I mean, in the Old Testament, you would be looked at as being married multiple times and an adulterer and everything else, like
yes,
that's literally what God's law says about that.
yes. I
It's
see.
crazy.
Yeah, you see, it's funny that it's good that you mentioned that because you mentioned that before I did. Because
Yeah.
according to the Bible, what you're saying is that if you have sex, that's your wife. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So according to that line of thinking, you had multiple wives. You had multiple husbands. So, but I do
Yeah.
believe, even though I'm coming from this from a more my channel has nothing to do with religion, but I could see how those kinds of stipulations keep society running more smoothly. Because if you're going to do this serious act,
Mm.
you better have responsibility for this. You can't just do this and not declare yourself the husband. And
Yeah.
we have
And
no
in the Old Testament, if you did that, you had to pay the bride price to the father.
yes,
Um, or if he didn't approve of, well, that's the other caveat too. If he didn't approve of the marriage, then you'd have to pay him the bride price, and she would return to her father though because you guys did the deed
yes,
there. Now, the other interesting thing is if you violated the woman, you would have to, like, you forced yourself on her. You would have to pay the bride price, take her to be your wife, and you could never divorce her. Is what, because you did that,
yes,
you could never send her away and put her away. Then
yeah,
so, but that's kind of that was to protect the women though, because if that happened to a woman, no other man would marry her, so she would be left destitute her entire life. So it was a way to protect women in those old days. But
yes.
now the modern feminists look at that and think that's the most horrible thing ever that you'd have to marry, blah, blah. And I mean, yeah, that's not desirable, obviously, to marry the man that violated you,
Yeah,
but
of course, yeah,
it
no,
was a way to protect them back then. But anyway, yeah.
no. I'm glad you pointed out because those are forms of sexual regulation that keep society in order. And when now we have complete deregulation. So,
Mm,
being that we're going with that, and the topic of deregulation, do you see, because it's definitely out there, maybe I'm paying attention to more than the next man, maybe you are too, is that do you think that this are you familiar with some of the content out there that just simply deals with sexual hedonism?
Yeah, yeah,
Now, I do not think that this is the way to go for men because I believe that this
yeah.
is feeding the beast.
Mm, yeah,
Uh,
yeah, for sure.
yes. So, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, you mean like the red pill or some of like the manosphere content of like just trying to bet as many women as you can, and um, yeah, I mean that leads to destruction, is what Scripture says.
Yeah.
So
Right.
we don't feed our fleshly desires. We have to. One of the fruits of the Spirit is self control. And God has instituted ways for our fleshly desires to be satiated. Well, for our sexual desires, that's in marriage, in committed
Yes.
marriage
Right.
to a woman. So that's the way He's instituted. And we have this on the other side. Is like, no, nah, we're just going to run through all these women as much as we can, and the women. I don't understand really that why a woman would want to run through as many men as you can. That just seems bizarre to me. But I guess there's some women like that. I don't know.
Right.
But yeah, that's destructive, and there is soul damaging consequences for that, is and physical damaging consequences as well, with sexual activity and STDs and all that kind of stuff like that. Those don't usually get talked about that much, but
No. Only the thrills get talked about, meaning that
yeah,
a lot of them will moan and groan about single mommies, but that kind of activity is what creates single mommies. So
yeah,
that seems very incongruent. That is highly incongruent to say
mm,
one thing and then indulge in the activity that creates the problem that someone's talking about. So
yeah,
I also don't. Yeah, I just to me that seems like a very unproductive and destructive path. I
mm,
think that men should stay away from it. And also, if we're going to have, also, my view is this though, and I don't even know if this could be done. Maybe I'm too optimistic. The only way to steer the sexual market back into order is if there is some type of regulation, not only on the women having sexual regulation, but on the men having the regulation also. Because
mm,
each man that does do this sexual hedonism muddies the waters for the next man, is what I think.
yeah, yeah,
So if you're going to do that with multiple women, well, then the next man has to take care of the damage that was caused by that other guy. So,
mm,
and then the women become more distrustful of men, and eventually they don't want anything to do with the men. Because
yeah,
if you get your body used, if a woman gets her body used, maybe she's doing this because women are also sexually driven as well. I'm not going to say that both sexes also have sexual desires that could be acted out upon without love, without affection, without marriage.
mm,
But in the case of many people, there is emotional damage done, and basically these
yeah,
people are taken out of the market simply because of the of a lack of self control, I believe. So
yeah,
I think that men eventually are going to have to get control over these desires. I think that it's very hard to, but if we're not going to do it as Dr. Baskerville said, and I quote him a lot because I've learned a lot from him, and I think that he has a good handle on how to correct this course for men, is that if men don't take a hold of this, then who's going to do it? Who's going to hold the line? Who's going to hold the line on more respectable behavior from both sexes? What do you think of that?
mm. Yeah, no, I agree, but I was just talking to I think it was my talking to my dad about this, that we seem to have set up a society that makes it hard for anybody to be, let's call it, like, sexual purity before marriage. Like, if we're going to be pure and be committed to one partner, if the average guy, if he's got his sexual peak is at 18, and at if he goes to college, so he's looking at what, 22, 23 before he gets out of college, then he probably needs to get established in some type of career before he can think about being married. So he's like, what, maybe best case you're like 25 before you're looking to get married, and then you get to be 25 and half the women don't even want to get married until they're 30. So we've like set up. So I'm just talking specifically in the church. Like, we expect in the church, and we should, purity before marriage, because that's what Scripture teaches. But then we've set up a society that you're just setting all up, especially the young men, to fail, because who's going to stay pure until they're 30 years old? I mean,
Right.
that's like, I mean, yeah, I mean, some rock star Christians will, but for the most part, just the average people, you know, if your sexual peak is at 18,
Yes.
people used to get married around 18, 19.
Yeah.
But the society that we've set up is, I mean, forget about that. I mean, nobody's getting married that early, or like maybe 5% of the population is.
Right.
So I think that's a piece of it too, is that we need to set up our society um, to be not to not be sexually promiscuous because of how long we wait to get married. Now, I guess there's the argument too. Once you get married, you have to stay faithful to your spouse. But you know, with that, and even on the, and then the other end, we're talking about the birth crisis, which I believe there is a birth crisis that we are going to have, just mathematically simple math. We're going to have demographic collapse here with almost every first and second world country. So a woman at age 30, if that's the average age of marriage, at age 30, she has already passed 90% of her eggs. So she only has 10% of her eggs left at age 30. That's when we're getting married. So, like, you're going to have fewer children if you only have 10% of your eggs left to have children. That's that's nuts.
Yes, it is. You point out these. I call these strangleholds because they're very hard to rein in at this point. But for an individual man being, we're trying to. I don't mean individual solutions. I believe that kind of like individual advice should be given by a father or a religious figure. You know, I'm not saying that I have answers for individual men. I'm just trying to have a conversation because I'm concerned about men
Well, no,
myself.
and even I think it's important we give the individual advice because many fathers are not giving this
Yeah,
advice.
exactly.
And
Yes.
certainly many pastors and religious figures are not giving this advice because they don't want to offend women. So,
Right.
so you're not going to hear it.
Well, no, I think you're right about this. Like, for example, if some men pop up in your space, my space, maybe we could do like a group call of people who want to call us one day. I'm all up for that. Also, if that happens, is that
Yeah.
like, do you think that well, let's say there's a guy who they see your content, right? And it's a guy who really wants to have a full life, a family, all that, and he's intelligent, and he really wants to. Well, you never know what's going to happen in life. There are all kinds of roadblocks and things that take you off your path and challenges. But let's say a guy really wanted to, again, not wait till he's 12 years past sexual maturity to do this, and he still has his schooling. I mean, I guess a simple pointer would be, well, we're living under this current system that might not be perfect or consistent with the word of whatever religion he follows or
Yeah.
is part of. Is that you could still make do to a degree, I believe. I mean, maybe you cannot get married as early as you want to, but maybe at least try to have some foresight. Find
Mhm.
if you're going to have the so-called girlfriend, be very I guess you could look out for the so-called red flags and green flags and just try to uh,
Yeah.
make good decisions, because I believe that a lot of people in general they're not thinking of this. They're not thinking of these of making these more thoughtful decisions than just going with the hormones. Like, oh,
Yeah, well, no, and that's why I really like the what Shaw's doing with the gold pill, and that space is like, you know, I don't think we're going back to dowry and bride price, but just expecting the wife to bring something to the marriage, I think that's at least a good step in the right direction. It's like, no, the expectation is not that you're going to retire and live as a woman of leisure when we get married. As long as you have one child, then you get to retire and live a life of leisure. Like that, that I don't see how that's fair. Like,
oh yeah, yeah, I understand that. But for in your opinion, if you do have one on this, do you think a lot of young men simply just even when they're, let's say, making a choice of a girlfriend or even a wife if they get married, do you think that they just like the gold pillars have been saying, do you think that they just hop onto, a woman likes them and they're so overcome with this romance and hormones and the sexual feelings and the sex itself that
yeah,
they just go right into this and they're not discreet enough. And because I,
yeah,
I I think also, and this is particular to my upbringing as well. I grew up in, let's say, a very highly permissive environment in the '90s, And
Mm.
I've been around women who, like you said, that I don't want to talk negatively about these women. These women were just young and also, filled with, all kinds of sexual feelings as well, like the men were. You know what I'm saying? So
Mm.
they
Yeah.
did not make the proper. Some of them acted in certain ways, maybe that they look back upon and maybe like, I can't believe I did that. Some like behaviors that you and I probably wouldn't think would be the best, but
Yeah.
maybe I'm informed about some things, maybe a lack of self control. Who knows? But I actually confused myself here. Where am I trying to go back with this? Is that um I think that there has to be. I mean, okay, this is where I'm going from. I believe this, and I'm not trying to say that I'm like a master at this or that I'm like some type of person who could read people's minds, but I do believe that red flags are evident like this. I'm the type of
Mm.
person who could talk to a man or a woman and
Yeah.
I could just see it almost immediately. Meaning that if I were to approve of a man that was trying to court my daughter, if we're going to call it courtship or dating, whatever,
Yeah.
and you know how a lot of women, for example, even though we're talking about men here, let's say the flip example is that they'll say things like this. I didn't know he was like that. He's a narcissist. And I didn't know it until 2 years in. And I say to them, oh, really? You didn't see it 2 years in? I saw 1 hour of talking to the guy. I saw 5 minutes. What are you talking about? You know what I'm saying? Or like, I didn't
Yeah.
know she was like that. You didn't know she was like that? You
Mm.
didn't know she was like that. Give me one conversation with this person. I'm not saying I could predict this with 100% accuracy. 1 hour of conversation. Just
Mm.
invite me out. If you're going to go on a date, we'll do a double date, guy. And I
Mm.
will be introduced to this woman and say, no, no, I see it. Something about her. Don't like it. Right. And now that's judgmental.
Yeah.
I
Well,
could
yeah,
also,
and that's a good case for staying pure before sexually pure before you get married, because like once you start engaging in sexual activity, you can't think, men at least can't think straight anymore. I
yes,
mean, it's just,
yes,
it's just
right.
like, whoa, what's going on? But yeah, I think the average man, I agree. I think the average guy, once he gets of marrying age and he's dating a woman of marrying age that wants to get married, um, he'll probably marry the first woman who's kind to him, who's nice to him, who shows affection to him. I see that a lot, even in like the church. It's like a lot of these guys, they're just average guys, don't have many choices. The first girl that shows them attention, just affection, yeah, they're getting married. That's which is not a great way to pick a what, just the first one. It's just boom, here she is. Oh, okay, yeah, I finally met. And then sometimes in the church, it's like, oh, God has brought us together, blah blah blah. It's like
Yes. Okay.
she's the only one that you ever met because you have no game, you've got no style, you've got no charisma. So you just like, oh, this one, she likes me. Boom, we're getting married. Oh, okay, like,
Right, exactly. But do you think that some of these men like I think that I grew up sheltered in a way. I think that sometimes city people grow up sheltered in some ways and not sheltered in other ways. Meaning I did not come up I mean I did not have a dad, and that's partly why I'm in these spaces because that the fatherless crisis concerns me, and the way that I raise my son is particularly important to me because I had no dad. He
yeah,
was very negligent and also extremely mentally ill. So I mean, and my parents got divorced when he I was 13 years old, and even before that it really was not the way that it was supposed to be anyway. The father children dynamic was really just, I don't even know if it was ever there properly, so I can't even
okay,
recall it.
yeah,
So that's one of the reasons that brought me here. But I mean, I think that also from growing up in a very socioeconomically diverse and also permissive environment, I mean that it wasn't good to be have a permissive environment, but it gave me the feel of where I could tell that this person is no good, and this is not because of the permissiveness there. All these awful behaviors of young people came out that I could really read someone. I mean, I've met every socioeconomic strata. Uh,
oh,
I've met men who have served time in prison. I have met women who have. I know they call these body counts these days, but I've met all kinds of people with all kinds of histories. Do you think
yeah.
some of these men maybe are sheltered to a degree?
Yeah, yeah, I think so, especially now with on everything's online. And I think these younger men, they're sitting behind screens for half their life, and so that's got to shelter you to some extent. And then the only the only engagement you've had with the outside world is like arguing with people on Twitter and whatever else, and so yeah, I think people are more sheltered now. Even when you go to public, if you go to public school, I mean, everything is anti-bullying and everything is, which bullying is bad. Um, but sometimes it just gets to be so mamby-pamby that nobody can say anything real to anybody else because then, oh, we're getting bullied here or whatever. And you go to your school talking about just a male space. You go to school, it's like 90% female. I know, like the school that my kids go to, I, I don't even know if I can name a male there besides, let's see, there's like an eighth grade teacher and then the high school principal. No, that's not a male anymore. The superintendent's a male. That's about the only two I can name. Like, there's probably more in there, but that's the only two that even come to mind. Like, they got like two in the whole school there. So, I think it's pretty. It's everything's done in the female way. It seems like in the those kind of spheres.
Right. Well, exactly. I mean, we are brought up under the leadership of women from I think, well, maybe 5 years old till 20 something years old. I mean, the majority of teachers are women, so we are, and a lot of even father having homes. I do know that some of them have a matriarchal flavor also, meaning that it's not just fatherless homes. There also are matriarchal households as well, where the father is physically there, but
Mm.
he might not be the fatherly authority per se. So
Yeah.
I think that's a problem also.
Well, and that's because a father practically has no authority. Like, if and how can you figure that out? Well, just try to exercise your authority in your home, and you'll figure out real soon who has authority in your home, right?
Right.
Like,
I do think if you get the right wife, that
she'll give you authority, but is that authority really? If it's like given to you, then is that real authority? Or
you're right.
you know what I'm saying?
Well, I do believe that there are some women who want not someone. I don't think that I think there are women out there, for example, who don't. Excuse me. There are women who want the guy to take charge, meaning that not asking for the authority to act on the authority, but
Yeah.
that is a woman that has to be found, pretty much. So,
Yeah, they're getting rarer in 2025. They're getting harder and harder to find. Although maybe I mean, Proverbs 21 talks about the wife of noble character. And, the first couple verses, it says she's rarer than rubies. So maybe it's always been that way. This wife of noble character.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. But do you think that, in regards to being sheltered, do you think that some maybe younger men, again, I don't know the younger men, maybe you have an opinion, maybe you know more younger men, that they have become also lazy with correcting their course of life? Because, okay, we could say there are no more male spaces. The Boy Scouts, there are no more gentlemen's clubs, so to speak, which we had one time. And the gentlemen's clubs were not strip joints; they were actually gentlemen's clubs. We don't have
Yeah. Like the Elf Lodge and
yes,
that kind of
all that,
thing.
yes. But for
Yeah.
example, do you think that some men are simply lazy with this? I don't know if they are, but I mean, even if we don't have these formalized male spaces, at this
Mm.
point, no one is stopping men from having an informal male space. Or
Yeah, I think the biggest male space that of the young men is online video game playing. I think that's where young men gather
yeah,
right now is they're online playing the game, talking to each other, chatting while they're playing the game, that kind of stuff. I think that has substituted for people actually getting together at the Elk Lodge like they would have done 100 years ago or whatever, right? Like, I think they're still getting together, it's just in a different way. I don't know if that's the healthiest way to get together because you're conquering online worlds together, which mean nothing. It's just fake conquering of something. Um, it's like I was reading one book. Let's see. It's Good to Be a Man. It's a pretty good book.
yeah,
And he talks about how today with young men we have uh, in Genesis, it talks about being fruitful, multiplying, subduing the earth, taking dominion. So he says the average young man now has fake dominion because he plays video games, and he has fake fruitfulness because he's addicted to online pornography. So we have just a fake world that we're engaging in right now. Well, let me cut off my. Okay, there we go. Sometimes my camera does that when I
it's fine.
put
Yeah,
something up to it. Anyway,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, no, I agree. I agree with what you're saying because when I was younger, we had to go to the park, and in the '90s, well, the park was
Mm,
filled with boys, filled with girls, filled with even both sexes, just mobs of us in
yeah,
in the open, and you could simply
yeah,
find people to hang out
that's
with.
a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't see. I mean, I have close friends that I know since 8 years old. Like one of my best friends, I no, two of my closest friends I speak to almost daily. I know this is I'm 8 years old, and I'm 46 now. I know
Wow.
another
Okay.
friend that I speak to all the time. I met him at 17 years old. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, so I have very long friendships going on here. Another friend
Yeah.
I actually met when I was 12, and I still get together with him. I'm going to see him on in mid-August. We're getting together.
Mm,
So I mean, I don't know if even men can relate to these sorts of friendships anymore, where they have this long history of all this
yeah.
shared history of down times, up times, joyous times, sad times, challenges that they shared with each other, funny stories that they can recall. I mean, I have stories, kind of like gossipy stories with my friends that I to this day, no matter how many times they're repeated, I am still cracking up over stories that we've experienced over and over and over again. And I do not know if young men have it these days. I mean,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
yeah,
I don't know either. Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. I don't know. I think it's even worse for young women, though. I think they have it even worse. But anyway,
yeah,
yeah,
no, that is a concern also. Uh, that yeah, but I believe my suggestion, and also maybe some young men don't want to hear what an old guy says, is that no one is stopping anyone from getting together now. No one is stopping anybody from going to martial arts classes together. No one's stopping anybody from doing, running a few miles together. No one's stopping you from going to the beach with your buddies, hunting, fishing, etc. Wherever you are. I mean, we didn't do hunting and fishing where I was when I was in Queens, but no one's
yeah,
stopping men from doing this. No one's stopping men from buying motorcycles and forming a club or joining a club that's already established. I mean,
yeah.
there are
Hey, you know who's stopping men from doing these things? But like the young men, their
I
mothers. Their
okay,
mothers are.
but I'm going to say this. I'm not. I don't like talking too much about what attracts women. I mean, we went over that because it's very important. But I'm also not someone like some of these like online influencers where they want to have 2 or 3 hour conversations of what women want, and we're going to dissect the crap of what women want for 2 to 3 hours. Like, so
Yeah, and half the time women don't know what they want anyway.
exactly right, right, exactly. So to me, it's this status, social adjustment, friends. It could be looks, money, whatever, ambition, certain talent. Some guy is skilled in music or some other type of art. That's it. We don't have to discuss this anymore. That's it. And
Yeah,
you might not even be an interesting guy. Well, I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm saying not the most exciting guy, and
yeah,
just by having friends and being friendly and some other good qualities about you, you can find a woman still, even if you're not the most thrilling guy. I don't mean I didn't.
yeah. Well, and you mentioned it too, having status. That's an important thing
Yes.
for a lot of women is having status. But status isn't, that comes in different realms. Like you can have spiritual status, like in your church sphere. You can have status among like religious status, right? Or then at your workplace, there's status there. Now that's probably harder to get.
Yeah.
Um, where's another status? Probably in like the sports type of realm.
Yeah.
There's like
Right.
status there, like athletic type of status. So there's different places of status. Then
Yeah.
so if I was advising a young man and said, I just can't find any women, blah, 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 I'd say, well, probably look for one place where you can try to gain status,
Right.
and that will be attractive to some women. So probably a place where there's women too. Like if it's at your online gamer convention, you may not have a lot of women in that. Maybe try to go for a place where you can gain status where there is a bunch of women. But anyway, yeah,
Right. No, I agree with you because also if you're not attached to anything and you do not have, let's say, a crew of men, I don't know what you want to call it, a posse, a clique, whatever, well, then you can't have status. You can't have status by
mm,
yourself per se. I'm not saying you have to be attached to your friends all the time, but if you have no connection to society or any group, you
yeah,
are status free. And
mm,
uh, from my experience, maybe I'm biased from my upbringing, that women are the women that I've known are were very attracted to men who are. I would say they liked groups of men that were very tight with each other, that were physically imposing, so to speak, or intimidating where I grew up.
Oh,
I'm not saying
yeah.
that men should be like that per se, but that is a big attraction trigger to be with other men that are physical. So, like I was
Yeah.
saying before, with the martial arts thing or bodybuilding or whatever. So, um,
Yeah. Yeah,
so
I'd say that's true. But I still like, I don't, I still don't think that women need men for protection
yes,
anymore. So, it may be like this is kind of a turn on, but I would still say in those things like martial arts, probably more of the turn on, like I used to box, more of the turn on is get in the ring and fight somebody,
yes,
not just like, yeah, I'm a boxer, look at my body or whatever, right? Like it's the competition that's probably the attractive thing. Like, yeah, this guy's going to get in here and he's going to sweat and try not to lose, because that doesn't look very attractive if you lose, but at least you're in
I
there.
understand. Yes, exactly. Yeah, yeah. And now that we're on, to move along, that I want to touch upon something else here, also in relation to the male friendships, is that you, maybe you could educate me a little bit on this. You mentioned here David and
Oh, yeah.
Jonathan in the Bible in regards to friendships, along with Joshua, Caleb, Moses, and Aaron. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. So where I was going with that is I just taught on this in at my church this past Sunday about it seems like today if a man has a really close, let's say a married man who has children, maybe not a single guy that might have, but a married man who has children, I just find it over and over and over and over again the male loneliness epidemic where he has a lot of acquaintances, but he just has very few friends, like true friends that he can talk to about like real stuff, not just like surface level. Hey, the Bears won the football game this weekend or whatever, but like someone he can sit down and talk to about real things. There's very few. Like I was just on a work trip and I was talking to a man where I went that he's got 3 kids. He's about my same age, goes to church every week. And I said, hey, let me ask you a question because I was preparing for teaching this at church. And I was like, do you have any close male friends where you can really like share like real stuff? And he's like, no. And I think that's the norm today. So in my lesson, I was saying like this shouldn't be the norm. This should be freakish. This should be people should look at this. It should be looked at as a loneliness epidemic that like men should have friends, like not 100 friends, but they should have a couple close friends. This should be the norm. This should be encouraged by our wives or our mothers or whoever. I don't know. But and so I gave the example of David and Jonathan had this amazing friendship in scripture. And I said, like, this shouldn't be freakish that men have a friendship like this should be looked at as normative. If you look in scripture at David and Jonathan and the type of friendship they have, I said, like Joshua had Caleb, Moses had Aaron, Daniel had Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. The apostle Paul, he had Silas or he had Barnabas. There was Peter, James, and John. It's like every major Bible character has another sidekick with him. It's just like this is normative, and if you don't have that, then there's something wrong. Like you should pursue that. And I was listening to the guy who wrote No More Mr. Nice Guy. Uh,
Patrick
shoot,
Lumber, Robert
yes,
Lumber.
Robert Glover. And he says, in his male groups that he has a lot of them, like I think he used to be a Christian counselor. And I think he kind of, walked away from that or whatever, but which is too bad. But he says in his male groups now, he says it's like a lot of the guys, he can't get them out. They're married, they have family, and he can't hardly get them out of the house because they feel like they have to get a hall pass from their wife. Like, so, oh, you need to be here helping with dinner, taking care of the kids, giving baths, changing diapers, whatever. Right. And it's like, man. And so my encouragement then last Sunday was like, wives, you need to like once a week, that should be normative that, okay, my husband needs to go. And they're like, a lot of wives are like, well, you've been at work all day. You've been hanging with your boys at work, blah, blah. No, you haven't. Like with our integrated work environments where it's all male, female, and we're all together, but like that, there's no camaraderie at work anymore. Like, well, come on, like I don't believe there is anyway. Maybe you've got it at your workplace. I don't know, but like, yeah.
Yeah, no, again, I totally see what you're saying. And I personally, I'm not trying to brag here. I do not understand that. I do not understand the hall pass. I make
Mm,
plans with my friends regularly.
yeah.
So and also my wife wants me to hang out with my friends. There are times where I go for
Mm,
whatever obligations, we have, like, let's all the summertime, or, in the summertime, there's all these kids' birthday parties where, a barbecue. Then there's July
yeah.
4th. Then there's the Labor Day weekend. Then there's this. And then, after a while, I'm like, I'm going to have my friends. She's like, good, go. You haven't seen your friend in a while. I'm like, well, I'm going to see him. And I'm saying there's no, if
I
there's,
think, yeah, I think you are the exception to the rule because, like, most guys I know, and then just what I listen to online and stuff, like, yes, I think you very much are the exception to the
oh,
rule.
okay. All right. Because I don't,
Yeah.
and also if I want to have I'm not lying here, an hour to 90-minute phone call with my friend. I'm not saying I'm
Mm,
going to do when I have obligations for my kids and I got to teach let's say, help out with educating my kids, or taking care of them, or going somewhere with them. If that's not, if I'm not involved in that, I want to talk to my friend for an hour or 90 minutes, I'm doing that. So,
yeah. Well, and that's probably a real conversation too. If you're
yes,
talking to your friend for an hour, you're talking about real stuff
yes,
that really matters. And
yes,
that's actually what I told when I was teaching at church. That's what I told. I said, hey, if you don't talk to another man and have a real conversation
yes,
once a week,
yep,
something's wrong.
yeah,
Like,
exactly,
that's freakish. If you don't have a real conversation at least once a week, something's wrong.
yeah,
And it was probably like the guys I was looking at, the guys they were just like
yeah. But I
they
see.
couldn't believe it.
Right, yeah, but it's not just at this age. I mean, I remember even being a teenager, and, like, maybe some of this was wasteful. I mean, like, even just acting like a goofball on the phone with my friends. Even when I was younger, my 20s or teens, like, maybe not like the kind of intellectual conversations I have now, but I mean, my phone with my friends all the time. If we were not at the park and it was cold out in the winter, we would talk about, like, just dumb stuff on the phone, like, because we liked each other's company. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
that's the whole thing. And actually, it's good that you brought up Dr. Glover, because I really do like his book, No More Mr. Nice Guy. And I actually did converse with him actually in the early aughts. Actually,
Oh,
I did converse with him a few times actually. So I
mm,
like his work. I recommend his book to
I
young
do
men as well.
too.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really good. And some of the videos that he's put out in the past few years, it's great. I think he has like an online support forum that people could join for a very inexpensive fee. And
Mm,
our last thing here is that there's been a lot of talk about men's rights.
mm,
And I mean, Devlin and Baskerville, they're not so much into, let's say, men, and I might be misinterpreting them here and where I'm going with it. I'm try to explain it in the best way I can. That men should not be focused on rights, but they should be focused on their duties. And I don't mean the trad con thing where you become a workhorse and you have the sourdough baking wife at home. I'm saying that I think they mean,
yeah. You retire your wife
yes,
to
yeah, yeah,
a life of leisure.
yes, right,
She becomes a woman of
yes,
leisure.
but
And yeah,
yeah,
I like Shaw's work, and that just grates against me with, and I just it's like it's also like the red pill stuff. Like, once you see it, you can't unsee it
yeah,
with, like,
oh yeah, yeah,
all these stay-at-home moms that are just
yeah,
literally doing nothing all
yeah,
day.
yeah,
And
yeah.
anyway, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that also, like, I think that what they mean by men's duties is that, and I want to wrap this up with the final topic here, is that, I mean, I think at this point, I mean, I'm concerned why I make these videos, is because I'm concerned about men, but I'm also, hence my name of my channel is Male Space,
Mm,
Male Space, is that I'm concerned about our civilization and society generally speaking. I mean,
yeah.
if the next generation is not going to hold this up, I
Mm.
mean, after we're
And they're
past,
not. I don't think they are. Like, every indication says they're not going to hold this up. So yeah.
but I mean, but men, okay, but I see a lot of, like, complaining online. A lot of the complaining is valid. I'm not going to say the complaints are not valid. I'm not like a boomer or a track has to say, shut up, man up. You should, because a lot of the track on stuff also, what I like about the track on stuff is that they talk in. I know it's funny, right? But
Yeah.
they talk in a way. I think maybe the boomer and or track cons, they talk in a way that simply ignores the environment of the current day, meaning that marry. Well, how does a man marry in this environment with all that we've been talking about for the hour and a half that we've been talking about, with
Mm,
the family courts, the behavior of both young men and women, the dating apps, the pretty much kind of like not even a normal hypergamy, because hypergamy is pretty much regular and normal. But I mean, we're talking about like narcissistic hypergamy,
Yeah.
malignant hypergamy, which is not have anything to do with survival.
Yeah.
Normal baseline hypergamy actually is an evolutionary type of survival instinct. The hypergamy we have now, I don't even consider hypergamy. It's simply to me narcissism and delusion.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
not a
Yeah.
normal level of hypergamy.
Yeah.
But
Drizzle, drizzle.
yes, yes, exactly. But what I'm saying is that how could a tricon say this or a boomer say this? Say, man up. Well, man up. I'm being discriminated here. I'm being badmouthed in the media.
Mhm.
I'm the enemy here. I'm a young man. I'm the enemy. And you want me to do
Yeah.
this? You want me to go and marry under the current legal system of the way that this is going here? And I'm not, the state's gonna be my kid's daddy. No thanks. Yeah, or I'm gonna work so that I a young man's going to work to have no wife, but he's going to be like funding. He's going to be funding the activities of women that have single mothers that have kids, but he's not going to get any reward of the society. And then the tricons,
That's a good point.
yeah,
Yeah.
the tricons, the tricons
Yeah.
and
You're
boomers,
still going to fund it. Yeah.
yeah, the tricons and boomers are going to be like, well, man up, try harder, try harder. How do I get hired? I have
Yeah. And the funny thing is about that too, a lot of these track cons that we're talking about, their job is to entertain people online.
yes, exactly,
That like Pearl points that out, and some of these guys like you're a man up, bro. And it's like your job is just to talk online.
yeah, yeah,
Like I probably a lot of these guys probably never worked a construction job in their life,
yeah,
and it's like
exactly.
get up and
Yeah.
get out there. It's like
Right, right, right. And I even saw some tradcons, and I don't want to go fear too off far here because we're going to wrap this up on my final note here. Where I'm going with this is that I remember
mm,
seeing some tradcons talking. It was like a group chat with three or four of them, and one of them was talking about this viral video. It made the rounds on social media of this woman who really liked doing manual labor. She was building a house, whether she was building a house with her family or building a house because that was part of her job, I don't know. But she appeared to be very skilled with her hands and doing the job that maybe some men can't even do, right? And
oh,
they said, this is not right. Women should not be doing manual labor. Women should not be lifting anything. They said something like that. I'm not kidding you. That what do we do? We're going to have these. We're going to have women that can't exercise their talents. We're just women who are just lying around on Instagram making bread and not even cooking full meals. I mean, what this is ridiculous. I mean, my wife, my father-in-law, I'm not a manual laborer, but my father-in-law is a carpenter. My wife knows a lot about manual labor from my father-in-law. Not only he's a carpenter, he knows a little bit about. He's like kind of like a jack of all trades, although his specialty is carpentry. So he knows a little bit of plumbing, a little bit of electrical work. So she knows a lot from him. So what am I going to say? Hey, wife, don't pick up a hammer. Don't hammer that nail out there. Don't garden. Stop that gardening habit of yours. You just lie around. And my wife also does a large part in homeschooling our kids. So my
okay,
wife, yeah, my wife works most days a week, not all of them, but the rest of the days that she's not working, she's still working. You know what I'm saying? Working on
yeah,
the house, working with in educating the kids. So the whole
yeah.
track hunting is it's like a fairy tale of some sorts. But I mean, if we're not going to try to disseminate this information for men improving their lot in this time and men not banding together and uniting, well, where is this civilization going to go?
Yeah, no, and I agree. Like the older men, I have no faith that the boomers are going to do anything, but the probably the next gen and the younger or the older millennials. I'm an older millennial.
Yeah,
We're going to have to get this turned around, because and I believe we will get it turned around because Christ is winning, the church will prevail, but. And that's part of the point of my channel too, is like, as far as like the marriage and family thing, for for society to get turned around and for the church to prevail, we got to get this corrected. Like this, and it's all through the church as well. This crazy talk about egalitarian, whatever, and all that stuff. So we got to get that turned around, and I think it's going to be up to the younger generation to get it turned around because the boomers, they're just, I mean, you can't.
yeah,
I was even, that's was to the guys in my men's Bible study. I'm just like, man, when I talk to boomers, it's like they just cannot see like these types of issues where it's just like it doesn't register in
yeah,
their brain.
yeah,
It's like what they just can't see it when
right.
we talk about these type of issues.
Yeah.
So,
I think that boomers have that problem. I think that my some people in my family also like some of them, like my mom and my uncle, they kind of not cynical in a bad way, but they are kind of cynical to a degree. So they can see problems when they're there. They're not, you know what I'm saying? If you're cynical to a degree, you can see the problems when you're there. They're not having these blinders on. So I
Mm.
think it takes some boomers, they're not all blind, by the way. Some of the boomers do realize what is going on here with the fertility crisis, uh,
Oh yeah.
the marriage
Yeah.
situation, the dating situation, what's out there on the dating market,
Mm.
the I think I said home costs. They understand everything. So, but then
Yes.
some of these tricons say, "Well, marry up and have all these children." Well, what about the young man who can't even afford a home now? Where is he going to house all these kids? Where? How is he going to do this?
Yeah. Well, and like Shaw's saying, maybe these boomers that reap the benefits of like 50 years of awesome economic times, maybe they should help fund their children's house or whatever. That, oh, no, 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 no. I need to fund my second house in Florida and blah, blah, blah. Like it's time for me to live for me
Yeah,
now because I put
yeah,
my time in, blah, blah, blah.
right. I mean, my
And
family.
it,
No, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just going with what you're saying because I had the same idea also. Because I guess people could call this spoiled. I mean, my family helped me financially too. I mean, they gifted me
yeah.
money, so
Okay.
they were very generous in that point, and they still also do. Both sides of the family do. Even though we live a very nice middle class lifestyle. I mean, I make more than the average salary. I'm not rich, but I do make more than the average. Both
Hmm.
families are still heavily involved. Uh,
Okay. Yeah.
but I realize that many people do not have
But
that.
that's traditional
And
too. Like
that is actually yes.
the system we have now is not traditional. Like that is traditional. The family helping their children and blah, blah,
Yeah,
blah. Like
all that.
that is, yeah. Hey, I got to get moving
Okay.
here.
Okay. Yes. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. I was going to wrap it up. So it was great to talk to you.
yeah, great talking to you. Love the conversation. We should do this again. I
Oh
think we've
yeah.
missed some things here. We should talk about again, maybe.
Yeah. Sure. I mean, I want to touch on some other things. Maybe try to expand these topics. Maybe do a group chat with Shah or anybody else that wants to join us.
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool. Good. So have a good night.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, you too. Thank you.
All right. See ya.
See ya.